An interested viewer wants to know what 3 things you should do if the ATF comes knocking at your door. But first, we have a super secret giveaway going on right now that you can enter for free, but it ends really soon. Just click the link in the description below to reveal what it is. And here's a hint, it's gun-shaped. We got noted criminal defense attorney Tom Grieve right here to tell us what should you be prepared for if you're dealing with specifically, and not just law enforcement, the ATF wants to come talk about guns.
Number one, recognize they're a federal agent, which means don't lie. There's horrible obstruction charges if you misstate something or if you're lying to them. So just if you're going to say anything, which default rule generally don't
say anything.
And that might be an odd foreshadowing, number two. But whatever you do, just don't lie about anything, okay? But number two is understand what your rights are. Understand how to navigate those conversations just as though they're local law enforcement, but largely the same thing of, hello. I mean, so if it's me, what would I say? Hello, officer. How can I help you? Because after all, if they're there with a warrant for a lawful search or something like that, you resisting that warrant is also probably a criminal act.
If they show up without a warrant, and we've seen some cases like that where the ATF's just like, hey, we heard you bought a whole bunch of guns. Can we see them? And my answer would be, can I see your warrant? You're not coming in my house without a warrant. And then the answer, of course, from a law enforcement perspective is, well, we don't have one, but it would really make it easy for us if we just let us in the house and see the guns, and then we'll go. We won't be here standing in your yard in our tactical gear with our big black truck outside.
Yeah, I mean, the sweet talk may give way to threats eventually, right? Look, you're going to have to decide ahead of time, have that conversation with yourself, would be my suggestion, of what am I going to be doing? Okay. But number one, don't lie. Number two, you need to understand your rights, because you need to understand how far you're allowed to go, how far are they allowed to go, and you need to understand where the missteps are. For instance, lying, right? Another one, as we've started to talk about, if there is a warrant, be sure to raise your rights, the fact that you're not consenting to any searches. But at the same time, look, even if that warrant turns out to be illegal, it may be a crime for you to resist that warrant in any way, shape, or form, even if the warrant gets thrown out down the line, right? So you just need to understand look, it's impossible to be too educated as far as what the legal system is, what you're allowed to do, what you can't do, because you can be a very good, honorable, upstanding person. You make a couple missteps, maybe not even lying. You just misunderstood what something was because you took your legal advice from Law and Order or whatever the case may be, and all of a sudden you're behind bars.
Now, can you stop and put a pause on things? The guy shows up, here's my warrant. All right, wait a minute, let me read this warrant, because warrants have to be very specific. They have to detail the scope of what they're searching for and basically where they can search for that. And would you advise people on the receiving end of a warrant to just tell the officers, slow down, I want to read this warrant before I let you in?
Good luck with that, for starters. I mean, that is not something I see working in practice. Also keep in mind that while the officers may have to file an affidavit and all that sort of stuff in order to basically gain the probable cause to secure the search, what you are given in the field very oftentimes lacks any of the supporting affidavits and documents to say, here's why we're here. You're just going to get the order from the judge saying, hey, you need to return this warrant within 48 hours or whatever the case may be. In other words, you've got this window to do this in, right? And here's the scope of the search. Here's the place. Here's what you're looking for, and here's all that kind of stuff, right? Look, reading it is what it is. I really think that the third most important thing you can probably have here is when the ATF is busy, or it doesn't matter if it's ATF, sheriff, whoever, if they're in your home, that's not the time to be Googling up, who do I call?
Yeah.
All right. And that's, of course, assuming you have access to your phone and all that kind of stuff, which may not be the case. But just the same, that's not the time for you to be saying, maybe I needed a lawyer. Maybe I needed a lawyer yesterday. Right. And I'm not saying that you have to go out and give an attorney a bunch of money. And I realize that's like an unholy act to be giving money to an attorney. Like I get it. Right. But that doesn't mean the fact that sometimes when you need a lawyer, you really need a lawyer now. And now's not the time for you making 20 phone calls and hours of research. You don't have that time. The time for that's over. So do that research up front. in addition to just never blanket statement, just never lie. Number two, know your rights, which includes your right to silence, your right to an attorney. The safest piece of advice any attorney can give anybody is raise your right to an attorney, raise your right to silence, which are two different things, but not the subject of this video. So the safest thing you can do is basically just don't say anything at that point. But then number three is have your legal research done as far as who is that person who's getting that call? What kind of person are they? Do they know what they're talking about here? Are they actually able to help me out? Or are they basically a glorified divorce and estate planning attorney who does a couple DUIs or a couple traffic tickets in a year? So you know what? They've got it on their website that they do this kind of stuff, but in reality, not the person you want,
Yeah,
right? You don't want the short order cook working at the the big steakhouse or something like that.
I just love the fact that you're perfectly willing to besmirch other members of your profession. So
it's not besmirching. So I mean, look, it's what it is.
It's the truth. They don't know.
It's absolutely true. But I mean, so look, in Wisconsin, all right, and this is gonna be very true. So this a lot of what I'm about to say will travel across the country. In Wisconsin, the overwhelming majority, I just recently heard this statistic, don't know if it's exactly right, but it's directionally accurate, that something like 90% of Wisconsin licensed still practicing attorneys practice in law firms the size of 2 or less people. If you're in a rural area, the odds are overwhelming that you're a general practice attorney. I mean, not all of them, not 100% of the time, but when I say general practice attorney, they just, in order to keep their doors open, they're doing a lot of whatever comes through the door, whether it's personal injuries, divorces, landlord-tenant, car crashes, criminal defense, you name it.
Yeah.
Maybe that person is truly the exceptionally skilled, knowledgeable, zealous advocate that would give you just as good, maybe even better than any shot at somebody who's really more of like, this is what I laser and focus on. But when you're in that small of a firm, it's by no means uncommon that you're practicing all sorts of different areas, which again doesn't mean that you're not competent. Some of the most competent attorneys I can think of, they practice 2, 3, 4 different areas of law. Again, there are exceptions, but where I'm going to this statement is the fact that very oftentimes, for a constellation of reasons and factors, people have to practice across multiple different areas of law because they're not able to establish a market or a demand for themselves in one area of law. Now, that could be, again, for many different reasons. Advertising as a lawyer in the last 10 years has gotten exponentially more expensive and more complicated than it was pre-Google, pre-everything else. So maybe that's a reason why, right? Maybe they just aren't the greatest. Maybe they're just mediocre at the end of the day. There's lots of different reasons as to factor out why this particular attorney may not be at the top of their game or the top of the game when it comes to representing someone in a self-defense gun case or understanding ATF regulations or understanding you name it. But at the end of the day, again, when federal agents are standing in your living room is not the time to be
trying to figure that out.
Yeah, let me search for that. Not the time to be doing that. You need to be doing your homework. Don't assume that all attorneys are the same. I assure you they are not. There are, generally speaking, reasons why some places are more expensive than others. Maybe it's just because they're really good at marketing and they can create the better demand for themselves, which will last for some time if they're putting out substandard legal services, but it won't last for long. So generally speaking, market price tends to correlate with how good someone is, but not always. So you just got to go do your education, do your reading, and you got to trust your gut and trust the reputations that a lot of these folks have.
All right. As always, thanks for the insight, Tom. Appreciate it.
Thanks for triggering me, Kevin.
You're pulled over by the police and you're carrying concealed. Do you need to do anything special in this scenario? Like tell the officer you have a gun. Click this video right next to me and I'll break down that scenario step by step on what you should do.